Imagine you're driving by a $4 million mansion in Calabasas, now for sale at around $1.8 million. The pool is still sparkling. You'll see which cities are seeing the biggest price adjustments and why even a 50% discount might still be a very risky buy. And if you want to add on extra policies for things like earthquakes or floods, assuming you can even get them, that just pushes your total insurance bill even higher. Then you've got to think about water. After so many years of drought, the water supply, both from the ground and from reservoirs, is really stretched thin. Some wineries and big country properties have even had to pay to have water trucked in, which gets very expensive. So if you're thinking about buying a place with its own vineyard or a big, beautiful garden, you have to ask yourself about the water situation for the long haul. It's not just about being green, it's about your wallet. And don't forget about upkeep, which can be a real headache in these rural luxury spots. Think about long private roads and old wells, or septic systems. Plus, older buildings always need work, and all of that costs money. And now that borrowing costs are up, there just aren't as many buyers who are ready to take on a massive mortgage plus those huge yearly expenses. Now don't get me wrong, Napa still offers incredible beauty, a wonderful culture, and a one-of-a-kind lifestyle for people with deep pockets. But the high-end housing market there is now completely tied up with climate and resource problems that you just can't overlook. Coming in at number 5, we have Santa Barbara. If you want to understand what's really going on in the housing market, beyond the usual headlines, when you pull into Santa Barbara, you see it all. The classic red-tiled roofs, streets lined with palm trees, and that stunning view where the mountains meet the ocean. For years, it's been sold as the perfect slice of paradise, a little bit of the Mediterranean right on the California coast. But under that gorgeous surface, the risks have been quietly growing. The heavy storms, flooding, and terrible mudslides we've seen lately have changed both the actual lay of the land and the official safety maps. The new updated flood maps now put more of the area, including some parts of nearby Montecito, in much higher risk zones than they used to be. In some cases, luxury homes that used to sell for between $2 and $3 million have had their prices slashed to account for past damage and the ongoing danger. We've even seen some of those beautiful cliffside homes actually start to slide, which has led to some shocking pictures of houses tilting or needing emergency crews to keep them from falling. And you can bet the insurance companies are paying close attention. In some of these areas, getting flood insurance has become a lot more expensive, or even impossible. And some companies are just flat out refusing to cover those risky homes on the coast or on the hillsides. Owners might face a choice between raising their houses. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Discover the Nation. We dig into the actual numbers and the policy changes, investing a ton of money in projects to protect their property, or just accepting that they'll be paying a whole lot more for premiums. Or they're left shouldering more of the risk themselves. Plus, local building rules that are meant to protect views make it even more complicated for owners trying to repair or rebuild. Getting the right permits can take many, many months, especially when your plans run into environmental reviews or rules protecting a neighbor's view. With everyone more aware of the risks, along with rising insurance and building costs and all the regulations, demand for high-end homes has really cooled off. Don't get me wrong, Santa Barbara still has its incredible scenery and wonderful perks. But buyers are coming in with a much sharper eye for a home's durability, its long-term safety, and the true cost of owning property in our changing climate. Number 4, Laguna Beach. You pull into Laguna Beach, a beautiful, artsy coastal town built right into steep hillsides and tucked into sheltered coves. The views are absolutely stunning. You've got galleries, cafes, and narrow little streets that create a special vibe that has charmed folks for generations. In 2025, however, and the climate risks behind the dream home, so you can be prepared for the future. Now, let's get started. At number 10, we have Calabasas. The luxury housing market here is looking at a completely different picture. High-end homes that once sold for well over $3 million are now sitting on the market for a lot longer. And it's getting more common to see multiple price drops. The typical time on the market for some of these homes has jumped to over 4 months, which is a lot of Laguna Beach is built on slopes and bluffs that need to be monitored very carefully. After a spell of heavy rain, geologists and city officials have recorded landslides and ground shifting in certain neighborhoods, leading to some homes being declared unsafe and needing very expensive repair work. These incidents make both buyers and insurers pretty nervous. Insurance companies have started excluding damage from ground movement or other earth-related problems from their standard policies, putting them in a separate category from things like fire or wind damage. That means homeowners could be paying a fortune in premiums and still be on the hook for huge costs if a hillside slips or foundation problems come up. Some community associations are trying to get ahead of this by hiring engineers and investing in retaining walls. You drive into Calabasas half expecting to see celebrities and perfect, luxurious homes. Gated communities dot the hillsides, but those costs are usually passed on to homeowners with special fees. Rising sea levels and powerful storm waves are also impacting beach access and coastal property. Stairs and paths that used to be an easy walk down to the sand have been shut down or have needed a complete rebuild. The city has to walk that tricky line between keeping access open and making sure everyone is safe. And that can sometimes lead to legal fights. For people looking to buy, Laguna Beach is still one of the most gorgeous spots in California. But the market today demands that you do a lot more homework than just the usual inspection. Things like soil reports, the fine print on insurance policies, the homeowners association savings, and the area's hazard history are now a huge part of the decision, not just an afterthought. Coming in at number 3 is Palo Alto. You arrive in Palo Alto, which has long been seen as the center of Silicon Valley's wealth. For years, pretty average-looking houses on quiet streets sold for incredible amounts of money, just because they were close to the big tech companies and good schools. But that whole dynamic has changed for the most expensive homes. Homes that were once listed for $4 million or more are now seeing major price cuts from what was asked during the pandemic. Guard shacks and palm trees line the streets, and it seems like every single home has a view, a pool, or even both. For years, overall, sales in the super high-end market have dropped, and some properties are sitting unsold for much longer than the owners or their agents would like. A few things are happening all at once. The big tech companies have been doing a lot of reorganizing and, unfortunately, letting people go. Some of those jobs have moved to different parts of the country or have just become permanent work-from-home positions. This means there are fewer buyers who really need to live a short drive away from those big tech offices. On top of that, working from home has given some families the freedom to move to more affordable places without taking a pay cut. You see, the property taxes on these pricey Palo Alto homes are still pretty hefty. And home insurance costs have gone up too, thanks to new assessments of earthquake and fire risks. When potential buyers start adding up the total yearly cost of owning, things like taxes, insurance, and all the updates you'd need for an older house, that big sticker price starts to look a whole lot different. Plus, dealing with city regulations can take forever. You hear stories all the time about how long it takes just to get a permit for a remodel. Projects that would be a piece of cake in other places can get tied up in a ton of red tape here. This area was the very symbol of Southern California wealth. In 2021 and 2022, many homes here were on the market for well over $4 million, especially if you're talking about making structural changes, adding on, or doing anything that might affect the neighborhood's overall feel. Now, this doesn't mean Palo Alto is suddenly cheap or that nobody wants to live there. It just means the old idea that prices would just automatically go up is being seriously reconsidered. The high buyers have a breaking point when it comes to the price, the hassle, and the risk. All right, coming in at number 2, we have Palos Verdes. So let's talk about Palos Verdes. It's long been known as one of the most exclusive spots on the coast in Southern California. For many, many years, quiet homes on those winding cliffside roads have sold for a fortune, mainly because of the incredible ocean views and being so close to LA jobs and great schools. But that trend is starting to change. In the luxury market, homes once listed for $4 million or more are now seeing their prices drop from those pandemic highs. Overall, of these properties are sitting on the market a lot longer than the homeowners or their agents ever expected. Today, you can find some of those same homes marked down into the low $2 million range, or less. And still, a few factors are playing out across the greater Los Angeles area. Big employers in entertainment, tech, and other professional fields have been doing some reorganizing. More jobs are now offering a mix of in-office and remote work, or are letting people work from home full-time. Which means fewer folks feel they absolutely have to live right there on the peninsula. At the same time, a lot of people with higher incomes have realized they can move further inland, or even to another state, and slash their housing costs without losing much of their paycheck. The ongoing costs of owning a pricey home in Palos Verdes are still nothing to sneeze at. Property taxes on multi-million-dollar homes are a huge expense, and insurance rates have climbed as companies take a fresh look at risks from earthquakes, wildfires, and coastal erosion. So when potential buyers do the math on the total yearly cost to own a home, including the taxes and insurance, and the regular upkeep for an older or custom-built house, that initial asking price suddenly feels very different. Getting permits and approvals in this coastal area can also be a real headache. It's common to hear stories about how long it takes just to get a remodel approved, especially for any project that involves the foundation near the cliffs or changes someone's view. They sit on the market. Recent figures show that high-end homes in and around Calabasas are waiting well over 100 days for an offer, or alters the look of a house in a way that might affect the neighborhood's character. A renovation that would be simple elsewhere can get stuck in review after review here. Now, this doesn't mean that insurance has gotten cheap, or that people have stopped wanting to buy. What it does mean is that the old assumption that home values would just keep climbing on their own is being seriously questioned. The high-end market on the peninsula is finding out that even in communities with breathtaking views, great schools, and plenty of jobs nearby, buyers still have a bottom line when it comes to the price, the buying process, and the long-term risks. And at number 1, we have Los Angeles. We're wrapping up our tour in the greater LA area, known for its hillside views, palm-lined streets, and sprawling neighborhoods that have long been home to some of the biggest and most diverse luxury markets in the nation. But in 2025, some parts of that picture are starting to look a little stressed. In quite a few of these upscale neighborhoods, homes that used to sell for between $3 and $5 million are now listed for a whole lot less. Yet they're sitting on the market for a long time. Some houses have been for sale for 200 days or even longer without a deal, even after price cuts, and sometimes a lot longer. That is a huge change from the lightning-fast sales of just a few years back. There's a term some local real estate pros are using on the quiet: idle inventory. These are homes that aren't in foreclosure or anything, they're simply stuck. And there are a few different reasons for this slowdown. Worries about neighborhood safety and the quality of public services are making buyers think twice about where they want to settle down for the long haul. News about the growing fire risk in the hills and canyons has insurance companies rethinking their coverage, and in some cases, they're dropping or refusing to renew policies. Especially for older houses that are hard to get to. New homeowners are getting insurance quotes that would have seemed unbelievable just a decade ago. On top of that, many of the area's high-end developments have homeowners associations that take care of things like roads, security, and shared perks like pools or clubhouses. And when bad weather or landslides damage that private property, those associations can hit homeowners with special fees that can cost thousands of dollars for each family. Arguments over who's responsible and who has to pay can even end up in court, which just adds another headache to the mix. The history of the land itself matters too. Some of these properties are built on land that was once used for industrial purposes. The 6-car garage is gleaming and the stone entryway looks like it's straight from a magazine. But the driveway is empty and the home has been for sale for months. One of the biggest reasons for this is insurance. Parts of this area are in high-risk wildfire zones and near places with new concerns about flooding, or has old utility lines, or sits on tricky ground. So when buyers find out about problems like contaminated soil, aging pipeline rights-of-way, or unstable hillsides late in the game, it can cause them to renegotiate the deal or just walk away. And in these high-end markets, word about things like that gets around fast. Los Angeles has always promised a life of glamour and opportunity, and in a lot of ways, it still does. But its luxury housing market in 2025 is also showing a bigger shift that's happening all over California. Things like insurance troubles, climate risks, the cost of keeping things running, and what people are looking for in a home are all changing the game for high-end property owners. So, you've just toured some of the most watched luxury markets in the state. Places where $1 million price cut doesn't always mean you're getting a safe or valuable deal. Those price drops might look great on paper, but once you factor in the risk of landslides, the danger from fires, insurance limits, HOA dues, and all the red tape, the real cost of owning that home becomes a lot clearer. So before you fall in love with that marble kitchen or that gorgeous hillside pool, you have to ask yourself if the long-term risks really fit your budget and your life. Over the last few years, let us know in the comments which city surprised you the most, or feel free to share a story of your own. Navigating a pricey market. If our tour helped you see beyond the listing photos, we'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. Share this video with any friends dreaming of a California luxury home, and subscribe to Discover the Nation so you never miss our next great adventure. Several major insurance companies have decided to stop taking on new customers in riskier parts of California, or have made their rules much stricter. Buyers looking in Calabasas often say they have fewer choices, higher rates, and tougher requirements. In some situations, they are told to cover part of the risk themselves or use a state-run, last resort insurance plan. For anyone thinking of buying, this means a lot more than just a higher monthly bill. It forces you to ask a very basic question. If a wildfire or a major storm hits this property in the future, how much of that damage is actually covered? Lenders are asking the very same thing before they'll finance a home. At the same time, HOA dues in gated neighborhoods are still very high, and their rules can be tough. Any changes to the outside of your house, the landscaping, or even paint colors are usually strictly controlled. The result is a strange kind of disconnect. On the outside, Calabasas still looks like a perfect manicured lifestyle. Well, welcome to California in 2025, where the prices of luxury homes aren't just coming down a bit, but underneath, the mix of higher insurance costs, stricter risk checks, and expensive upkeep is creating a real problem, which just means fewer folks are willing to sign on for a multi-million-dollar commitment. If this is the start of a bigger shift in Southern California's luxury market, it's something we should all keep an eye on. I mean, would you buy a property like that if you weren't even sure you could get insurance? Number 9. Beverly Hills. As you come down from the ridge into Beverly Hills, you see a name that's meant wealth and glamour for generations. Those beautiful tree-lined streets, famous shopping areas, and incredible mansions have made this one of the most well-known luxury spots in the world. But even here, the numbers aren't adding up like they used to. Since the market was at its hottest, prices for high-end Beverly Hills homes have dropped quite a bit. Homes that were once going for $6.5 million might now be listed closer to the mid-$3 million range in some areas. And even then, they can just sit there, unsold. And that's not just about how a place looks. It's about the real cost of owning these homes. The yearly property taxes on these mansions can easily run into the tens of thousands of dollars. They're being reevaluated based on risk, insurance, and maintenance costs in ways that would have seemed crazy just a few years ago. Upkeep for huge houses with established gardens, pools, and older systems adds another big chunk of change. Utility bills, staff, security, and HOA fees on certain private streets all just pile up on top of the mortgage. For some, the monthly cost just to maintain the place is more than what many families across America pay for their entire mortgage. Getting insurance has become another major headache. The risk of wildfires in the nearby hills has led to higher rates and more questions. Some of these homes, just depending on where they are and how they're built, have seen their insurance rates skyrocket or found they have fewer coverage options. When buyers look at those costs over 10 or 15 years, many of them start to wonder how much house they really want. At the same time, new rules have made it much tougher to rent out a property short-term, which gets rid of a source of income some new owners were counting on to help with costs. Plus, strict permit rules and high fees for even simple renovations make it a real hassle to update an older property. What you end up with is a neighborhood where the name still means everything. In this video, we're going to show you 10 cities where high-end homes that once sold for $2 or $3 million are now listed for much less. But the number of people who can actually afford the full cost of living there and are willing to deal with the risks is a lot smaller than it was when interest rates were super low. It's not that Beverly Hills has lost its charm, but its high-end market is being forced to face a new reality. Number 8 is Malibu. You cruise down the Pacific Coast Highway into Malibu, with homes perched on cliffs or sitting right on the sand. For years, this stretch of coast was the definition of Southern California luxury. In 2025, it's become one of the best examples of how climate risk and insurers backing away can totally change even the fanciest markets. Not long ago, it wasn't strange to see a beachfront home sell for $7 million or more. Today, some of those same properties have had their prices slashed, but they're still on the market. One of the big reasons is erosion. With rising seas, powerful winter storms, and a changing coastline, the shore is just disappearing in some spots. Properties that used to have plenty of space between the back porch and the water now see that line getting much, much closer. And even so, many of them are struggling to find a buyer. These are not simple bargain deals. And right along with that, getting insurance has changed. Lately, many private insurance companies have started to pull back from these high-risk coastal areas, particularly in places where the dangers of wildfires, landslides, and floods all come together. Homeowners who used to have a mix of private insurance are now being forced into state-run plans or special policies that can cost a small fortune each year and still not cover everything. And getting flood insurance is often a whole separate headache, and the terms aren't always great. On top of that, new risk maps from the government have put even more of Malibu in the high danger zone, which affects what you'll pay for insurance and whether you can even get a loan. For anyone looking at a multi-million-dollar home here, knowing exactly what your insurance covers and what it doesn't is suddenly as critical as the ocean view. Banks might demand a certain amount of insurance before they'll even approve a mortgage. And if you can't get that coverage at a reasonable price, the whole deal can fall apart. These new realities, both physical and financial, are really changing how people act. You're seeing some folks who've lived there for years quietly putting their homes up for sale and moving further inland or out of state altogether. They are complicated properties that come with some serious strings attached. We are going to look at areas where HOA rules are clashing with rising costs. Others are staying, but they're pouring a ton of money into things like seawalls and projects to keep the hillside stable, which all need permits and constant upkeep. Malibu is still as gorgeous as ever, but it's not just a simple story of home prices going up and up anymore. It's become a prime example of what happens when the cost of protecting your home starts to get almost as high as the price of the house itself. Coming in at number 7, we have San Francisco. Picture yourself driving across the bridge into the city, a place that for so long felt like a sure bet for making money in real estate if you just bought a home and held on. Back in 2021, beautiful old homes in the city's best neighborhoods were going for prices most people could only dream of. But by 2025, that story has completely changed. We're seeing reports that the median prices for some of those classic single-family homes have dropped way down from their highs during the pandemic, with some houses now on the market for around or even less than $1 million, after selling for more than double that not too long ago. In a few well-known cases, sellers have had to slash the price multiple times and are still having a tough time getting any serious buyers to the table. So what's going on? Well, the cost of owning a home in San Francisco is so much more than just the sticker price, where new wildfire and flood maps have completely changed the definition of what it means to live safely near the coast. The yearly property taxes on a home valued at a few $1,000,000 can be absolutely staggering. Insurance costs have shot up because companies are worried about the risk of earthquakes, the city's old infrastructure, and even wildfires in the region. On top of that, some policies won't even cover major events, or they come with enormous deductibles, which means the homeowner is on the hook for a lot more of the cost. Meanwhile, the realities of daily life are really starting to affect how buyers feel. You hear stories about property crime, and people are worried about safety in some of the main business and shopping districts. Plus, the very visible struggles with the homeless population are making people question where they want to live. Even in the historically wealthy neighborhoods, more break-ins or slower police response times can really change how people feel about a property's worth. And all the regulations just add another layer of headaches. Rules for historic homes, planning permits, and strict building codes mean that trying to make any changes to an older house can take a ton of time and money. Homeowners who want to do a quick renovation or add on a room can find themselves tied up for ages in permit reviews. What you end up with is a market where the asking prices are lower than they were a few years ago, and where some homeowners are learning that getting insurance at any price is no longer a given. Along the way, but it's still a massive commitment, and making your home worth more is a lot more complicated now. For some folks looking to buy, some people see that as a real opportunity. But for a lot of folks, buying a home in San Francisco in 2025 feels less like a sure thing and more like a risky, long-term gamble. All right, number 6 on our list, Napa. You picture yourself driving into Napa Valley, seeing those beautiful, neat rows of grapevines, and thinking of pure luxury. For a long time, the beautiful homes nestled in the vineyards or on the hillsides were the picture of California success. A perfect mix of a great lifestyle and the wine country charm. But lately, that perfect picture has started to look a little different. We're seeing fewer homes listed for over $2 million, and the ones that are for sale aren't fetching the high prices they used to. Those sprawling estates that were once easily priced over $3 million are now coming back on the market with much lower price tags. And even then, they can sit there for months. A big reason for this change is the risk of wildfires. The state has now marked huge areas of Napa County as high or even very high-risk fire zones. This is all based on the terrible fire seasons we've seen recently, plus the ongoing dry conditions and weather patterns. As you'd expect, insurance premiums in these areas have skyrocketed. We're hearing from homeowners who are paying tens of thousands of dollars a year for full coverage.